पत्तल निकाल दे पत्तल सब पीछे सब पीछे पीछे
Hare Krishna.
प्ले करता हूँ. और करता है. जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जान वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जान वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी Nandana Braja Jana Jana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Jana Jamna Tira Banachari Jamna Tira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharidhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Sodanandana Bhajanandana Sodanandana Bhajanandana Jamna Tira Banachari Jamna Tira Banachari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Sodanandana Bhajanandana Sodanandana Bhajanandana Jamna Tira Banachari Jamna Tira Banachari
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Ghosh Bhaktivinoda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Ghosh Bhaktivinoda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Ghosh Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jai Gordai, Jai Gordai. Jai Radha Padari Radhe. Jai Sita Rama Hanuman, Sita Rama Hanuman. Hai ba, hai ba, hai ba, hai ba. Hai ba, hai ba, hai ba, hai ba. Hai ba, hai ba, hai ba, hai ba. जय ओम स्वामीश्वर प्रभात महाराज की, श्री श्री गोविंदा की, श्री श्री राधा पाद सती ललिता विशाखा की, श्री श्री सीताराम हनुमान की, शास्त्र बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन मैराथन की, और ग्लोरी श्री समन गुरु, और ग्लोरी समन गुरु, और ग्लोरी श्री समन गुरु, और ग्लोरी श्री गुरु श्री गुरु. Speak in English or Hindi?
English or Hindi दोनों
और जोड़ी को रिक्वेस्ट में और जोड़ी कितने भाग थे जिन्हें अंग्रेजी समझ नहीं आती, क्योंकि ये क्लास कई भाग विदेशों में भी सुन रहे हैं. हाँ मैक्स ओके. कितने भाग थे जिन्हें बिल्कुल अंग्रेजी समझ नहीं आती. We'll do in English then. We'll do in English. और जो हिंदी जिन्हें अंग्रेजी समझ नहीं आती वो बैठ सकते वहाँ अनुवाद हो सकते. और माता जी उनके लिए भी कोई कर सकता है. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. भागवतम. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. So it's Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, Text 12. Verses on the board?
Yes, right behind you.
Nashnata Patyam Imanam Yadayo Vibhavanti Evam Niyamakrad Rajan Shane Shima Kalpate Nasada Patyam Ivanam Vyadayo Abhibhavanti Evam Niyamakrad Rajan Shane Shemaya Kalpate Nasada Patyam Ivanam Vyadayo Abhibhavati Evam Niyamakrit Rajan Shane Shemaya Kalpate.
नाश्नतपथ्यमेवान्नं व्याधयोऽभिविभन्ति हि एवं नियमकृतराजन् शनैक्षेमाय कल्पते. नाश्नतपथ्यमेवान्नं
Word meaning.
Synonyms, translation and proper by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki na not ashnataha those who eat pathyam suitable eva indeed annam food Vyadhayaha, different types of disease. Abhibhavanti, overcome. He, indeed. Evam, similarly. Niyamakrit, one following regular principles. Rajan, O king. Sharaihi, gradually. Shemaya, for well-being. Kalpate, become sweet. Kindly repeat after me the translation. My dear king, if a deceased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food prescribed by a physician, is gradually cured, and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. Similarly, if one follows the regular principles of knowledge, he gradually progresses toward liberation from material contamination. Can we listen to these ecstasies that the divine grace? One is gradually purified if one cultivates knowledge, even through mental speculation, and strictly follows the regular principles enjoined in the Shastras and explained in the next verse. Therefore, the platform of jnana, speculative knowledge, is better than the platform of karma, fruitive action. There is every chance of falling from the platform of karma to hellish conditions. But on the platform of jnana, one is saved from hellish life, although one is still not completely free from infection. The difficulty is that on the platform of jnana, one thinks that he has been liberated and has become Narayana or Bhagavan. This is another phase of ignorance. Srimad Bhagavatam 10-32. Because of ignorance, one speculatively thinks himself liberated from material contamination, although actually he is not. Therefore, even if one rises to Brahma Jnana, understanding of Brahman, one nevertheless falls down because of not taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Nonetheless, Jnanis at least know what is sinful and what is pious, and they very cautiously act according to the injunctions of the Shastras. My dear king, if a deceased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food prescribed by a physician, he is gradually cured, and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. Similarly, if one follows the regulated principles of knowledge, he gradually progresses toward liberation from material contamination. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurmetanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Savitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Guru Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahakana Gunatarmitam Tam Sajevam Sadvetam Savadhutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahakana Lalita Shri Vishakharmitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Sapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutri Pranamami Hare Priya Pancha Kalpa Tadyasha Upadanu Bhayavacha Paritana Pavanebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Nashnata Bhatyam Evanam Kalayo Abhivantihi. Evam Niyamaka Rajan Skaneshimaya Kalpade. So, this verse is being spoken by whom? Krishna Maharaj has inquired. What was his inquiry? His first inquiry was, how can people be saved from entering into the hellish planet? Because in the previous fifth canto, you read about the description of the hellish planet. How many of you have read the description of the hellish planet? Okay. It's so frightening. And so he described the nature of the hellish planet. And how do you enter into the hellish? Why do you have to enter the hellish planet? Because of comedic sin. This is a reaction. Krishna already heard. The punishment is so severe in hellish planet. He began to wonder, why would anyone want to go to the hellish planet? Because the suffering is very intense. So Krishna wanted to know if there's any way people can be prevented from entering into the hellish planet. And as Prabhupada explains, that's the nature of a Vaishnava. Vaishnava is concerned not just with his own liberation, but also the liberation of others. Therefore, in describing the qualities of a saintly person, Lord Krishna said, one of the characteristics of a devotee of the Lord is he is merciful. Merciful means he is desirous that nobody go to the hellish planet. He is desirous that the people become free from some sort of birth and death. So that's why you read in so many verses where the Lord says, he is dearest to me who preaches my glory. So Parikshit's inquiry was, how can people be prevented from entering into the hellish planet? In material life, when you see somebody suffering, you say, let him suffer, what do I care? I'm saved. But the devotee, his mentality is, I should prevent everyone from entering the hellish planet. So Parikshit wanted to know, how can people be saved by going to hell? And Sukadeva Goswami has explained that before one gives up this body, one should atone for the offenses that you have committed. In the Manu Samhita, this is very nicely explained. One, it's very nicely explained how a criminal must be punished in this life only. Otherwise, in the future lives, it is far more severe. For example, if somebody has murdered someone, he should give his then he should be hanged. That is the basic conclusion. So, in the sixth canto, you will hear what? The glories of the holy name. So Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry is very genuine. And he also wanted to know, how can this tendency to commit sinful activities be cleansed from the heart? And what do we see in practice? In practice we see that people commit a sinful activity, then they atone for it, and then commit sins again. So this is the normal pattern. The Christians go to the church and atone for sins they've committed during the week. Muslims go to the mosque, the Hindus go to the temple. And with the hope that they will be pardoned. So Krishna wanted to know, how can this sinful tendency be cleansed? Krishna Maharaj, who was genuinely desiring to have this knowledge. And Krishna Maharaj said, what is the value of a process where you sin and atone? Sin and atone means you do something wrong and it's religious. And then you say, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. And again I do it. And that's what you see. People go to place of worship and try to atone. Just like when you have the Kumbh Melas in India. Millions of people come. But they don't come to get sadhu sangha. They don't come to learn about devotional service. They will come there to atone for what they've done. And Prashant might give a nice example. You have a tree and it gets burnt, but the roots of the tree are still there. So what will happen? The tree will grow again. So unless we atone so deeply that we won't repeat this mistake, this is the only, you can't cleanse the heart. If the heart is cleansed, I will not repeat the same thing, then that is genuine atonement. So when the scriptures talk about atonement, they're talking about genuine atonement. So Krishna wanted to know, how can the sinful tendency be corrected? So Shukadeva Goswami, in these verses, is explaining the importance of cleansing the heart. He's not interested in learning how to sin and atone. He has clearly condemned that. So a devotee of the Lord is not interested in some superficial cleansing of the heart. The cleansing of the heart must be very genuine. So Prashant Maharaj has inquired, and he gave this nice example, how the tree may get burnt, but because the roots are there, again engages in sinful activities. So in today's verse, what is Shukadeva Goswami saying? He's saying that if a diseased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food prescribed by a physician, he is gradually cured, and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. So we are all diseased. Is that right? So we are all diseased. Disease means we all have unemptied mature desires, mature weaknesses. And because of this, we don't easily surrender to the Lord. So Shukadeva Goswami is saying, my dear king, a diseased person, so we must recognize that we are all diseased. The doctor may say you're healthy, but spiritually we are diseased. Materially healthy, spiritually diseased. So, and our goal should be to cleanse the heart. So Prashant is saying, Shukadeva Goswami is saying, if a diseased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food given by a doctor or physician, then he can avoid or overcome the tendency to commit sinful activities. So we must recognize that we are diseased. And what is that disease? Too many mature attractions. And what's the nature of mature attractions? Can they ever satisfy you completely? The scriptures say, doesn't matter how hard you endeavor, you can never satisfy your mature senses. So therefore the scriptures say, you won't waste your valuable time. use it to serve the Lord. But the materialist has an opposite philosophy. So, Srila Goswami is responding to the question raised by whom? Krishna. We see the Bhagavatam, questions and answers. Devotees are asking questions, and the Lord and his devotees are replying. Just like Krishna Maharaj. He asked so many questions. Devahuti. She inquired from her son. Please explain. So to ask questions is natural. Arjuna does that in the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is nothing but full of questions and answers. But we should ask these questions from the right source. Just like if we want to undergo some medical surgery, we just don't stop a man on the road, say, this is a knife, take it, can you cut me off? No, you want to go to a qualified doctor, qualified lawyer. So similarly, we should get a question answered by approaching a bona fide spiritual teacher. In the 4th chapter, Krishna says that with the Parivritena permission, I say, inquire from whom? Somebody who has realized the truth. And if you go to the right source, then you'll get the right answer. If you go to a corrupt source, you'll get a corrupted answer. So Parikshit Maharaj is Shukadeva Goswami is saying that in order to be free from our sinful tendencies, what should we do? We should have a qualified physician to get the right answer. So Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring. It's for the benefit of the entire society. These devotees, when they ask questions, they're self-realized. They're asking questions for our benefit. We are heavily contaminated. Our hearts are very black, full of material desire. And Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring for who? For humanity's benefit. So, our hearts are heavily contaminated. And because of that, this tendency to commit sinful activity is also there. So if we want to free ourselves from this tendency, then what do? What do? Approach a bona fide spiritual authority and take the medicine prescribed by him. In the Bhagavatam, in the previous verse, it said, a good physician does not cure a disease and let the symptom of the disease remain. Just like, let's say you have cavity, let's say you have a disease, and if you want to cure yourself from that disease, what do? Take the medicine. Nevertheless, practice the guideline. You have diabetes, you take medicine. But a good physician will also tell you what diet to take. He will also tell you can't take any sweets at all. Because if you take sweets, take medicine at the same time, it will be contradictory. So, Shukadeva Goswami has explained, a good physician does not give the medicine and let the symptoms remain. He gives you philosophy, he gives you medicine, which you can cleanse the heart completely. And in other words, our sinful tendencies should go away. So Shukadeva Goswami is confirming here that a diseased person can only be purified if he takes the prescribed medicine offered by self-realized soul. So if we want to purify our heart, what do we have to do? Cultivate spiritual knowledge. 2 types of knowledge are there: material knowledge and spiritual knowledge. Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, Krishna says, Raja Vidya. This knowledge is the king of education. this knowledge is most important. These days we see that people are pursuing material education. But when you talk to them about spiritual education, it's not important. We used to send our children to take educational courses. But you don't send your children to cultivate spiritual knowledge, mostly. So this is what is lacking in society, lack of spiritual knowledge. And if we have spiritual knowledge, then we can control the mind and the senses. Prabhupada wanted the Bhagavad Gita to be taught in the schools of India. Prabhupada wrote a letter to Mahatma Gandhi in which he said, "You are a strong advocate of the Bhagavad Gita. Why don't you introduce the Gita in schools?" The other day, a few days ago, I read an article in the paper that said, Bhagavad Gita is being taught in more and more schools now. So if they give spiritual knowledge, then children will grow up with good character, good intelligence, and abstain from sinful activity. But when it's time to educate the children, we have no time. Maharaj has said, Kamara Achrat. Cultivate this knowledge from the time you achieve 5 years away. If you cultivate spiritual knowledge from a young age, then you'll grow up with a strong character and good habits. And if we don't cultivate the spiritual knowledge at a young age, then what happens? We see in society today. So, what is important is cultivating spiritual knowledge. And we just pursue the path of material knowledge, that will not suffice. So, it is being explained in these verses that unless one receives transcendental knowledge and practices it, he will not be able to cleanse the heart. And Krishna Maharaj's question is what? How can the heart be cleansed so that sinful tendencies don't remain? Krishna Maharaj is not saying, please excuse me, now I want a license for more. He's saying, I'm not interested in that process where you burn a tree because the roots are still there below the earth. Material activities again begin to trouble you. So, what is interested is in pure bhakti, pure devotional service. Vyasadeva had compiled the vast Vedic literature, but still he was feeling as if something is lacking. He was feeling disappointed. And when he went to his guru, Nada, what did Nada say? You have not exclusively presented the path of pure devotional service. He said pure devotional service. Because karma kind is also some type of knowledge. But he said it's not pure devotional service. So Srimad Bhagavatam is educating us how to cleanse the heart. So here, Shukadeva Goswami is saying, if we take the right medicine, then the sinful tendency can be cured. So the Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us the process of executing devotional service. For example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave instructions to Rupa Goswami and his brother Sanatana Goswami. Both of them were at one time holding very important position in society. But gradually, both left. First, Rupa Goswami left, and then his brother Sanatana. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave instruction at Prayag to Rupa Goswami for how many days? For 10 days. And he gave instructions to Rupa Goswami or to Sanatana Goswami for 2 months. So, if we want knowledge, we should be cultivating spiritual knowledge. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very inspired by these two brothers. And these two brothers were constantly engaged in devotional service. And what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was tell Rupa Goswami? Rupa Goswami, he said, Brahmanda Brahmavite Kono Bhagavanaji, Guru Krishna Kripapai. After going through innumerable births and deaths, is he the fortunate soul who receives what? Bhakti Lata. Receives knowledge about devotional service. He understands. Unless you engage in devotional service, your life is wasted. Shama eva hi kevalam. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Rupa Goswami that after going through many thousands of births, he is a fortunate soul who receives the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga, the seed of devotional service. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained what is the measurement of the Atma. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the soul or Atma is 1/10,000 the tip of your hair. Can you imagine? The Vedas are so perfect. Nowhere in the world will you find any educational program where they teach you what is the size of the soul. So what is the size of the soul? 1/10,000 of the tip of your hair, not the length of the hair. Otherwise, some of the yogis who have long hair, they would have a heavier soul, a longer soul than me. And the ladies would have bigger souls. So, Lord Chaitanya explained, tip of the hair. So it doesn't matter whether you're a male body or female body, the nature of the soul is, the measurement of the soul is 1/10,000 the tip of your hair. Now, this knowledge about the soul is very important. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained this second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the most important of all the chapters. Where they teach you, who are you? Where are you coming from? Where are you headed for? Unless we cultivate this knowledge, human life is Shrama eva hi kevalam. These days, when we talk about the nature of the soul, never takes birth, never dies, what do people say? What is the proof? So if you give them the proof, and what is the proof? Consciousness. As long as there is soul in the body, there is consciousness. When the soul leaves the body, then there is no consciousness. A dead man may be next to you. You may shout, shout, shout. He won't respond. Because the soul has left the body. When someone passes away, we say, oh, chhod ke chala gaya Swaraj. First of all, there is no guarantee. Everyone's going to go to the Swaraj. And chhod ke chala gaya. That means you recognize that something is gone. So this knowledge of the soul is very, very important. So Lord Chaitanya said, after going through unlimited births and deaths, he is a fortunate soul who receives what? Bhakti Lata being. And the Lord also explained what is the measurement of the soul. So this transcendental knowledge should be cultivated. And this principle, that the soul in the body that is eternal, is also supported in other religious texts. For example, in the Bible it is said, what shall I do if I gain the whole world, but suffer the loss of your eternal soul? Jesus Christ is saying, you may gain the wealth of the whole world, but if you have lost, if you misused the human body, then that is very tragic. So therefore, we should cultivate spiritual knowledge from a young age. Athata Brahma Jigyasa. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this to Rupa Goswami. And then that is the nature of the soul. The soul, there is no birth, no death. Not having once lived, does he ever cease to be. So this knowledge is very important. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained how there are 8,400,000 species of life. This knowledge is totally absent in society. The Vedas are so precise. They tell you exactly how many species there are. For example, in the Java Lakshana, there are 900,000 species that live in water. Can you imagine 900,000 species living in water? That's what the Vedas say. Sour. And then 2 million species that live on earth but can't move. Like the trees and the plants, etc. The plants also have life. The trees also have life. Prabhupada was explaining in one lecture that these days we are killing so many trees. So many trees are being chopped, cut. Why? No, to make pulp, to make paper. Paper, they don't have any such thing as synthetic paper. Synthetic paper means paper made by a different process. All the paper that you see is based on, what is the basic ingredient? Pulp. And pulp comes from? Coming from killing trees. We are literally killing trees. So there are 2 million species that live on land but cannot move. Trees, plants, flowers. Can you imagine? 2 million. Then there are species that insects. And that's 1.1 million. Then you have species that live in water, 900,000. Then you have 2 million species that are on earth, but they cannot move. Either trees, flowers, whatever. And then you have how many species that live on that belong to human life? 400,000. Only 400,000. Only the species that live in water, on earth, that fly in the sky, they're far in excess of 400,000. So this is precise information being given to us in the scriptures. That's why the Vedic scriptures have an answer to every question that you can possibly raise. And Vedic knowledge is acknowledged by many scholars all over the world to be very authoritative and reliable. So Shukadeva Goswami is saying, he is now beginning to respond to Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry. And what was Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry? What? How can this tendency to commit sinful activities be corrected? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained first the measurement of the soul. Then he explained how many different types of species there are. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained how this creeper, how this seed of devotional service will grow. How does it grow? Sharanam Kirtanam. Sharanam Kirtanam is the key to spiritual advancement. Sharanam Kirtanam is a medium through which you can cleanse the heart. The heart is contaminated. How can you clean it? By Shravanam and Kirtanam. And we've all experienced this ourselves. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, we had so many bad habits. But after you started this chanting process, the heart began to get cleansed. So, the seed of devotional service needs to be watered. And watering is comparable to Shravanam and Kirtanam. So Shravanam and Kirtanam is the main medium through which you can cleanse the heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed his followers to write volumes of books. But he himself left behind only 8 verses known as Krishna. And in the very first verse, what did he say? Chetadapan Maharaj. One of the benefits of the holy name is it cleanses your heart. What does it mean by cleansing your heart? You may say, my heart is clean, my clothes are clean, my body is clean. So what do you mean by cleansing the heart? It means replacing the contaminated habits with purified habits. This process of bhakti yoga, or devotional service, cleanses the heart for everyone. Male, female, adult or youngster, cleanses everyone's heart. And we have seen this. And each of us has also experienced it. If you chant your rounds very nicely, you find a cleansing fast. And if you don't chant properly, then what happens? The contaminated desires remain. So if we want to cleanse the heart, what is the process? Sharvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shamna Kirtana. Hidyantasto Bidani. The dirt in the heart can be cleansed by chanting the holy name of the Lord. So chanting the holy names of the Lord, taking part in chanting Him, is the medium through which you can cleanse the heart. And this process of Bhakti Yoga. The process of Bhakti Yoga is the topmost knowledge. And Bhakti Yoga rendered how? Without mature desires. Krishna Bhakta Niskama Adeva Shanda. Mukti Mukti Siddhikami Sakarya Shanda. Those who engage on the path of devotional service purely, not that I will serve Krishna, I must get this in return. Those who serve the Lord from an uncontaminated angle, their hearts will be cleansed. So those who are in the pure devotional service, they are always peaceful. And on the other hand, Mukti Mukti, Siddhi Kama, Sakari, Ashanda, they are always unpeaceful. Who? Those who want to perform karma karna activity. Karma karna is a sort of business engagement with the Lord. I will do this, but in exchange I will get this. So it's not on the path of pure devotion. But at least, and then you have the Jnanis. They have spiritual knowledge, but it's not complete. They have spiritual knowledge. It prevents them from committing gross sinful activities. But it doesn't give them pure love of God. Therefore, in the purport Prabhupada says, the Jnanis, the saving grace for the Jnanis is they know what is grossly right, what's wrong. That's like, you see Mayavadis. There are many Mayavadis in India. So these Mayavadis, they don't recognize that God has a form. Their concept is, God has no form. Prabhupada used to say, this is a great insult to the Lord. If you say, you don't have any eyes, you don't have any legs, you don't have any eye. So, but these Mayavadis, they are impersonalists, they are not as sinful as the gross karmis are. The gross karmis engage in a variety of sinful activities. But the Jnanis, they may not accept the personal form of the Lord, but they at least accept we should not take meat, fish and eggs, no intoxication and all that. So therefore in the purport Prabhupada says that the Jnani, from the platform of Jnana, you have knowledge and you don't engage in grossly sinful activities. And whereas on the path of Bhakti Yoga, you engage in unmotivated devotional service. So those who serve the Lord in a pure mood, they are always peaceful. Whereas on the other hand, Mukti Mukti Siddhi, Those who want yogic siddhis, they don't. Those who have knowledge, jnana, but they're impersonalists, they don't make spiritual advancement. But at least they are saved from extreme bad habits. So Srila Goswami is saying that we should embark on the path of Nirvati Marg and Pravati Marg. One is the path of sense enjoyment, to which we all like custom. And the other is the path of pure devotional service. So we should receive this transcendental knowledge from the right source. And if we apply this, that will help us advance spiritually. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was explaining to Rupa Goswami this process of spiritual advancement. And then he said, after traveling to many births and deaths, you need a fortunate soul to receive the seed of bhakti. Then Lord Chaitanya said, as the Bhakti Lata beach grows, then sometimes you see unwanted creepers. They are also leaning on the tree. What is meant by unwanted creepers? I am serving, but I also want honor. I must be acknowledged as the best devotee here. If I don't get the honor I deserve, I think I deserve, then you go on strike. So these unwanted creepers desire for name, fame. I will do bhakti, but I want name and fame also. These unwanted creepers are dangerous. And if we don't cut them at the right time, then these unwanted creepers can knock down the tree of devotional service. So when you see that these creepers are growing, what should you do? Take the help of a sadhu. Take the help of a saintly person. And don't allow these unwanted creepers to grow. So on the pure devotional path, we discourage these unwanted creepers to develop. And you can do that by executing pure devotional service and taking the help of saintly people. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Rupa Goswami that this, he explained, in order to protect your devotional creeper, what should you do? You should have a strong fencing so that unwanted animals and people may not come in. Just like we have a big boundary wall. Why do we have that boundary wall? Why? So that unwanted elements may not come in. Unwanted animals, they don't come in. Unwanted human beings don't come in. So Lord Chaitanya said, one should keep oneself in sadhu sangha. If you keep yourself in sadhu sangha, then even if these unwanted creepers are developing, they can be identified. Sometimes you may have seen a sincere friend, godbrother or someone may tell you, Prabhuji, I see there is shortcoming in your behavior. I see that you don't pronounce the Mahamantra properly. Normally we would say, hey, this man is just envious of me. But we should be grateful. We should be grateful when somebody points out your weakness. We should be happy if somebody says, Prabhuji, this is a deficiency. We should be happy. Normally, what's our attitude? The moment someone says something, this man is just envious of me. But we should be grateful. Bhaktisiddhanta Ji used to say, if somebody is flattering you, then be cautious. Beware of flatterers. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Rupa Goswami that these unwanted creepers develop. But if you have a strong fencing, then the unwanted creeper will be identified. So we should cut out the unwanted creeper. Stay in devotee association as much as you can. This sadhu sangha is very important. Lord Chaitanya, when he explained the essential principle of devotional service, the first word that he mentioned was sadhu sangha. And Shravanam Kirtanam is second. Why? Because if you have the genuine association of a sadhu, then he's going to give you the right knowledge. And what is the right knowledge? Chant Hare Krishna if you want to make spiritual one. So, the unwanted creepers should be eliminated, and that can be done if you are in spiritual association. And in spiritual association, we should not just be looking at who is going to praise me. We should look at who is giving me real knowledge. How can I take advantage of this knowledge? One of my spiritual questions. But then Lord Chaitanya said, this beej, which grows into a tree, that can be spoiled. Beautiful garden built by devotional service can be destroyed also. How? By Vaishnava. This is called the mad elephant of offense. You open the doors for an elephant, you go and destroy everything. You leave some small children able to play in your drawing room, they'll put it, they will just spoil the beautiful garden. So this beautiful garden should not be spoiled. And how can you prevent that? By executing devotional service and avoiding offense. In our scriptures, we have so many examples of the results of Lord Chaitanya, in order to demonstrate the importance of avoiding aparadha, used his own mother as an example. Sachi Mata, as you know, was very disturbed. She was upset that her older son left home. The younger one is also preparing to go. And she would blame. Who did she blame for that? Avadacharya. So the devotees would always say, "My Lord, you're so kind to everyone, but you're not kind to your mother." And the Lord would say, "My mother has offended." And what was her offense? Just that. She blamed Advaitacharya for influencing the Vishwarup to leave home, then also influencing Mahaprabhu to leave. So the Sachi Mata had a certain amount of anger. And once when Advaitacharya was offering respects to the Lord, Sachi Mata came from behind, took it just from the feet of Advaitacharya. And the Lord saw that he said, "Now my mother will get love of God." Yeah. So, we heard this example many times. But the reason this is important is because the Lord showed even his closest relative, the mother, is not exempted from this offense. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Rupa Goswami how to proceed on the path of devotional service. In this verse we see that Shukadeva Goswami is giving Parikshit Maharaj. What is he giving him? Chances and knowledge on the process of bhakti. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this knowledge, and then he sent the two brothers to Vrindavan. And what was their agenda? To write books on devotional service. So the books that Rupa Goswami has given us, they're all based on the instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave in 10 days in Prayag. And then he gave this knowledge to Sanatana Goswami also for how long? For 2 months. And in Prayag. They have that beautiful Gurima temple there, where Gopal Sanatana received spiritual knowledge. So, when we talk about Pravati Marg, the path of knowledge, what does it mean? Knowledge by which you can execute devotional service. That is what it means. Rajavidya, Rajavidya. So it's very important that we cultivate the spiritual knowledge. And if we don't cultivate spiritual knowledge, what will happen? We will keep drinking poison. Manusya paya, Radha Krishna bhajya, janya shunya pisha kainam. Having obtained this very human birth, and not worshipping Radha and Krishna. What was I doing? Drinking poison, usually. So by and large, everyone in society is drinking poison. And the devotees, what do? They endeavor to preach so that instead of poison, they take nectar. But people are so contaminated, they say, let me drink poison. So that is a tragedy. So in this verse it is said that if we execute transcendental devotional service in its pure form, then the disease will not touch you. That's like they say, if you take vaccination, then you won't get a disease. So if you execute devotional service, then that will give you strength and knowledge how to overcome mutual attraction. To overcome this illusory energy of mind is very difficult. But if you but if you surrender to me, you will be able to overcome. So me means what? Following Lord Chaitanya's instruction. Lord Chaitanya gave these instructions to Rupa Goswami. And Rupa was first to leave. And then his brother Sanatana also managed to escape from the prison. The Nawab was so cruel when he saw that Sanatana is refusing to come back and resume his duty. The Nawab was totally dependent on these two brothers. And when Rupa Goswami left, he was very unhappy. When his brother's intention was known to him, then he said, no, you can't go at any cost. And he said, imprison him. So he was put in jail. And the jailkeeper, Sanatana knew him. So Sanatana said, why don't you let me go? You can tell the Nawab that I had gone to evacuate. And I jumped into the river. No, I can't do that. So Sanatana, having worked in a very important position like a prime minister, Sanatana knew that his brother had left 10,000 gold coins with a grocery store. And Rupa Goswami, when he resigned from government service, he had so much wealth that the whole boat was full of gold coins. And he distributed it in a very exemplary way. He gave 50% of his wealth to the Brahmanas. 25% he gave to his relatives. And the balance he kept for a future emergency. Sanatana Goswami knew that he may need the money to rescue Sanatana Goswami. And when Sanatana was put in prison, he received a letter from Rupa Goswami. And what did the letter say? The letter said, I have kept 10,000 gold coins for you for emergency. So then, finally, Sanatana increased his bakshi's donation. And he was freed by the jailer. So Sanatana Goswami met the Lord in Varanasi. And then we got this spiritual knowledge. And from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For 2 months non-stop, Lord Chaitanya was instructing Sanatana Goswami. So this knowledge of devotional service is not acquired by some material means. It is acquired through spiritual agency of the sadhus, Guru Sadhu, Shastra. Shastra means words of God. Everything that we say should be based on scripture. It's not that, according to me, this is how we should do. So we say, according to Krishna, we are looking for what will please me. Like these days, there's a new phenomenon in ISKCON. They use the word comfort zone. Do you know comfort zone? Comfort zone means, I will serve, but on my terms. Everything should be on my terms. But then you don't get the benefit pure devotional service gets. So our philosophy is, what is Krishna's desire is my desire. What's good for Krishna is good for me. That place Krishna's interest for it. Not that you have to do what I do. We should do what Krishna wants. And how do you know what Krishna wants? Through Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Shastra means words of God. And Sadhu means knowledge coming through the disciplic succession. And then Guru. These are 3 parallel tracks on which the chain of devotional service is moving. So Parikshit Maharaj is being instructed to follow the Nivritti mark. We go from Pravritti mark to Nivritti mark. On the Nivritti mark, your process is devotional service. You have knowledge how to overcome the illusory energy. So, in these verses, Shukadeva Goswami is explaining, what is he explaining? How you can free yourself from this tendency to commit sinful activities. So this tendency to commit sinful activities is deep-rooted. And because we live in a materialistic society, you see that we all have so many bad habits. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita they said, Asanga Sanga Tyaga Vaishnavachara. Or Chaitanya said, give up the association of non-devotees. You may say, but how can I give up? I have to go to college, business, and so on. Everywhere you meet a non-devotee. So the answer is, associate with them only to the extent that it is necessary, and not beyond that. In other words, minimize what? Minimize material education and maximize spiritual association. And then that will give you strength to make spiritual advancement. So in this verse and purport, in the purport, Prabhupada explained how the path of personal devotional service can give you the strength to give up the inferior path. On the path of sense enjoyment, Pravritti mark, our only businesses, our only desire is to engage in sinful activities. But when you come in contact with Guru Sadhu Shastra, you get to learn what is Pravritti mark, Nivritti mark, Pravritti mark. And if you follow that path, then what happens? Then you can overcome immaterial attraction. So Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry is very genuine. Give me knowledge by which my heart can become permanently cleansed. So we are not interested in karma kanda. We don't go to Kumbh Mela with the intention, I'll take my bath and wash my sins, so I have a fresh license for 4 more years. Our goal is, through the path of devotional service, to cultivate pure devotional service. Because this is the only process by which the heart can be cleansed. And unless we cleanse the heart, Cleanse the heart means what? It means engage the senses in service of the Lord. And we have the classic example of Maharaj, how we use the senses in service of the Lord. We have eyes. So we use the eyes to see the beautiful form of the Lord. And thanks to technology, you have darshan or 20 sets of deities on the same day. So use the eyes to see the beautiful form of the Lord. Use the tongue to chant the name, to hear transcendental sound, and to taste Krishna Prasad. Bhagavad Gita says, if you eat food and you don't offer to the Lord, then what does that do?
Sin.
You're incurring only sin. So our philosophy is, eat but eat Krishna Prasad. That should be our guiding principle. In the Bhagavatam, you read the example of a fish. How does the fish get caught?
Because they're attached to food.
They're attached to food. The fisherman puts some food on the fishing rod. And then as the fish goes to eat it, what happens? It gets caught. So use the tongue to eat Krishna Prasad and to chant the holy name of the Lord and to engage in Krishna Katha. If we don't engage in these spiritual activities, what will we be doing? Engage in prajalpa. Prajalpa weakens your spiritual life, and Krishna Katha strengthens your spiritual life. So our philosophy is to take part in what? Krishna Katha. Rupa Goswami explains in Amending what is conducive, what is detrimental. So the path of devotional service is the highest, and one who engages on that path, he can free himself from the material contamination. So Rupa Goswami was taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you should keep devotees with him, preach to them. Just like there was that Brahmin who was reading the Bhagavad Gita in the Sri Rangam temple. There was a Brahmin, he was uneducated. He could not read and write. But every day he would sit down at a particular location in the Sri Rangam temple and chant and recite the Bhagavad Gita. So Lord Chaitanya saw a big crowd of people around him. So he wanted to go and see what is it. And there he saw, there was a Brahmin. He wasn't even holding the Gita properly. And he was chanting the shlokas. And as he was chanting, tears would come to his eyes. And the neighboring inhabitants knew that Brahman is uneducated. So they would say, this uneducated man is trying to impress us. So they would make fun of him. So Lord Chaitanya said, what are you doing? What are you reading? He said, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita. My spiritual master told me to recite 18 chapters of the Gita every day. So I sit over here and chant. Most of the verses, I don't understand what they're saying. But because it's my Guru's order, I'm executing it. So, and Roger said, but still, why do you shed these tears? And your body is trembling. He said, when I see the humility of the Supreme Lord, when I see the Supreme Lord is so humble, he becomes the chariot driver of his devotee. Looking at his humility, my tears come from my eyes. Lord Chaitanya was so pleased. He embraced him and said, you have understood the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. And then Lord Chaitanya kept him with him for 4 months. For 4 months. And he was instructing him daily on the path of devotional service. So Lord Chaitanya would keep devotees with him and give them elaborate explanation. So the path of Bhakti Yoga is a path by which you can give up your attraction to material things. And the path of Bhakti Yoga, when executed properly, will give you the strength to defeat Maya. Just like verse which quoted earlier. Krishna said, Devi Shagramai, Mama. To overcome this illusory energy is very difficult. But if we surrender to me. So surrendering to Krishna, what does it mean? Sarvadhamam paritajamam ekam sharanam amtam. What does it really mean? It means engage your body, mind and senses in service to the Lord. It doesn't mean renounce other religions and etc. It means engage your body, mind and senses in service to the Lord. And then if you do that, then you get the strength to fight Maya. Just like the two sons of Kuvera. When they were liberated by Narada Muni, they said, now onwards, we're going to use the tongue constantly to glorify you. Use our legs to walk to the temple of the Lord. In other words, in ignorance, we may have performed wrong actions. But now that we received genuine knowledge, we should use our senses in service of the Lord. So, what Shukra Goswami is presenting is the path of pure bhakti yoga. And that will give you the strength to cleanse the heart. Otherwise, cleansing the heart is not so easy. And our process is serve Bhagavan. The jnana process is superior to engaging in karma, but it doesn't give you pure love of God. With bhakti yoga means engaging in undivided pure devotional service. So we should endeavor to progress on the path of bhakti yoga. That is the substance in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We should hear attentively. That will give you the strength to cleanse the heart. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna very much. Thank you very much again for this very inspirational lecture. Covered so many facets of sadhana bhakti for the sadhaka also. My question, Gurmat, is you highlighted how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said beware of flatterers. But on the other hand, when one understands that when somebody criticizes, it is good for one's improvement. But yet, while one may have desire for name, fame and prestige, one may decide to stay away from that. But if somebody speaks ill of us, if there's ill fame, the heart gets disappointed and the mind gets disturbed. So how does one handle the disappointment?
So your point is, if somebody speaks ill of us, how should we behave? Lord Chaitanya gave us the philosophy of tolerance. Be extremely tolerant. If somebody speaks ill of us, we should just take it as Krishna testing us, testing our tolerance levels. Tolerance doesn't mean we just tolerate what you don't like. And we accept. When Nityananda and Haridas were preaching house to house, they were accused of even being thieves, but they tolerated it. So if somebody is criticizing you without any genuine reason, then you will also get the karma. Just tolerate it. I saw incidents where Papa was criticized, but he just tolerated it. If somebody is criticizing you, let's say it's a devotee criticizing you, then you can approach a senior devotee and take his help in communicating to the person who is criticizing you. Because if we criticize a Vaishnava without reason, then you also take on karma. It's not that. And what's the result of this karma? The devotional people will not grow. Vaishnava prad, as the prad increases, you lose taste for chanting the holy name. This is the most serious complaint, most serious effect. you lose your attraction to the holy name. Sometimes people say, I don't have a taste, I'm losing taste. That could be due to one apraz that we are committing. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for such a wonderful lecture. So my question is regarding Shachi Mata. So she had something in mind about Vedantacharya, and that is out of the love towards her sons. So even though, I mean, such a things that happened, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was looking not to give Krishna Prem to her, and in such a current time, if we have something out of even for the out of love for the sons or daughter, or out of something it comes in the mind which is negative for the Vaishnavas. So even though that we have to bear the replications.
I'm sorry. You repeat.
Yes. In the current time, I mean the current Kali Yuga, even something that negative comes in our mind, for the negative, and if we correct it later,
If something negative is coming in your mind,
yes, and we correct it also in the mind itself, then even though we have to bear those replications.
one saving grace in Kali Yuga is mental offenses don't count. So that's a concession. It doesn't mean we take advantage of it. Because if you think ill of somebody else, then eventually it affects your execution also. That's what Prabhupada often said. Look at the good in everyone. Be like the bee and not the fly. The bee is attracted to a clean environment, the fly to dirt. So look at the good in everyone. Any more questions? Yeah, there's Mataji in the back. So today, tomorrow is complete lockdown, huh? Yesterday, I'm sorry. Yes, quickly.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for enlightening us. Guru Maharaj, my question is that as we learned today, that hearing chanting will cleanse our heart. And pure devotional service means to do all the activities for Lord's pleasure. But when I see myself, even while engaging in devotional service or hearing and chanting, the show off, to the tendency to show off and to want to enjoy the results of my services, it always there in the mind. Intelligence always saying, why are you showing off, don't do that. So there is always a war between mind and intelligence, like don't show off.
Okay, I understand your question. So if this desire develops, I want to be recognized, honored, and still do execute devotional service. And by executing devotional service, even if you have mature motivation, you will eventually get purified. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, he went to the forest. His motive was to get a very opulent kingdom, even more than anyone in his dynasty had it. But the power of Bhakti Yoga is so powerful. As he practiced meditation and chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya mantra, his heart got purified. And then, when he was given the opportunity to ask, he said, my dear Lord, I was looking for broken glass, now I found a diamond. Krishna says, people come to me in four circumstances. One of them is who wants money. Krishna says, those who go to the demigods are of less intelligence. Come to me, I will give you the benediction. So, everybody doesn't become a pure devotee right away. But we are on the path of pure devotional service. And if we stay on that path, eventually we get purified. The important thing is, you don't get deviated from the path. Okay?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, thank you for a very nice
Okay. One question.
lecture. The question is, Maharaj, that how to increase our attachment towards our spiritual master. And you explained like Sachi Mata took the dust of the lotus feet of Advaita Acharya. So by accident, if we commit a Vaishnava offense, then we have to beg for forgiveness, or we have to take the dust of the lotus feet, or both.
You can do both. Better. I mean, you can apologize. And the Vaishnavas are usually very magnanimous. So if you go to advertise, apologize, you will gladly accept it. The Gopal Brahman had cursed Srivas. And when Srivas forgave him, when he apologized, then Srivas forgave him. He didn't say, no, I'm not going to pardon you. Yeah.
Well, it's your online question. Would you like to take them or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, there's a question from Ram Prabhu. He's asking, how do we accept our mistakes as the mind is saying that you're right?
Take help of those who are more advanced. Take help of seniors. Rupa Goswami talks about 6 rasas amongst devotees. And one of the rasa is reveal your mind to those who are more advanced and take instructions from them. There's no point in revealing the mind if we are not going to take instruction. You don't say, I'll go to the doctor, but I don't want his medicine. Yeah.
There's one more question. Maharaj says, how do we put this into practice that we have the soul and not the body, especially when we are suffering from bodily pain?
If you have bodily pain, like, how do we? It takes time to realize this knowledge. Even Arjuna said that. So, we have this body, and the body is giving us pain in so many ways. And then we say you're not this body, but we don't say, don't look after the body. Chanakya Pandit said, 3 things should be acted upon immediately. Disease, death and fire. So Chanakya Pandit is saying, if you have some disease, take care of it. Because the body is to be used as a vehicle to serve the Supreme Lord. Yeah.
And just one last question, then we can take it. Now, what will be the destination of somebody who has an unfulfilled spiritual desire at the time of death?
If you have some spiritual desire was strong, Krishna will give you the chance to execute it in the physical in the next life. Just like Prabhupada said many times, all those who are joining the Krishna conscious movement, they've all done service in the past. So because we couldn't complete our devotional service, Krishna has given you this opportunity. But if you don't do it again, then that would be tragic. So we should all be thinking, I've got this opportunity, now let me take it seriously.
There's this question from Melbourne, Guru Maharaj. The devotee is asking, some senior devotees in India say that we are Hindu. So he's asking why. Why do we say that we are Hindu?
Say that again.
Why do some senior devotees in India say that we are Hindu?
I don't know who you're referring to, but in some circumstances we become Hindus and in some circumstances we become Vaishnavas. But that I can't discuss in a big pub assembly. Hindu actually, as Prabhupada has explained many times, it's It was meant to recognize people who lived across the Indus River from Hind, from Sindh it became Hind.
Yeah.
Sometimes we use the word Hindu to easily identify that we are from this country or this part of the world. And the best is people Vaishnavas. Enjoy Surabaya Krishna Nityadas, engage in service to the Lord. Okay.
Should we continue? 10 now.
Yeah. A few more questions.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for this enlightening lecture. My question is, as part of service, many times we have to hear about the criticism of devotees. And many times it may be wrong and right also. So, but ultimately heart gets eliminated. So, what can we do with this?
But we should all have the power to discriminate. We should. You should develop the ability which you can recognize this criticism is valid or not. And then when you're in doubt, go to your spiritual seniors. Generally, we should avoid fault finding. And we should not engage in fault finding in public or in big groups. If you really see some fault in somebody, you can go to your temple authority and tell them, this is what we've seen. Many times you may think of some negative point without that being established to be truth. Okay? Yes. I'm sorry.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Guru Maharaj. My question is, sometimes things don't work according to our plan. So how should we accept Krishna's plan and be happy?
We would all love to be in a situation where all our plans are executed. We forget that we have a history of karma. And according to the history of karma, you have your quota of happiness and distress. Prahlad Maharaj says in the seventh canto, doesn't matter how hard you endeavor, you won't get one drop of more for your happiness than what is your quota. So make the effort and leave the results in Krishna's hand. You may try to achieve something, but you can't achieve it. Don't get frustrated. Just understand that is what your quota is. Okay?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, can you please explain the term praising and criticizing? Both deviate us from the goal of our life.
Criticizing and praising.
We praise some other or criticize some other. Both deviate.
Not praising doesn't mean if somebody does, some devotee does some nice service, we tell him thank you very much. You should not think. If I say tell him thank you, he'll get puffed up. It's normal courtesy. You thank somebody. If someone's done some good service, we appreciate him. We recognize him. We give them transcendental awards. That is not praising. That is our acknowledging that this person has done this service. And we recognize that by giving him a gift or something. So what's the question?
How we deviate from our real goal by praising or criticizing others?
Criticizing is more dangerous. Criticizing, we discuss Vaishnava Prad. So unless there is genuine weakness, we should avoid it. Usually we criticize just due to envy. We feel he has some facility which I don't have. So we become envious. So we should avoid criticism influenced by envy and anger. Okay. So we better stop now. Anything to say about book marathon? Book marathon is going on just when?
Final score is there.
You display the final score in English.
Final was till what date?
Final score is there.
हरे कृष्ण। तो सबसे पहले हम धन्यवाद देना चाहेंगे गुरु महाराज को जो महाराज ने आज हमें इतना समय दिया और
महाराज के
महाराज के आशीर्वाद से सभी भक्तों ने बहुत मेहनत की इस बार बुक मैराथन में। हालांकि बीच में थोड़ा सा स्लो डाउन हो गया था, बुक्स अवेलेबल नहीं थी, फिर भी भक्तों ने उत्साह कम नहीं किया और बुक्स निकालना शुरू किया। श्रीमद् भागवतम, चैतन्य चरितामृत, कृष्ण बुक, इंग्लिश भगवद गीता, मराठी भगवद गीता, तो बहुत सारी भाषाओं में और अन्य भाषाओं में भी ग्रंथों को वितरण किया। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सब भक्तों का, विशेष रूप से मसूदर की टीम बहुत जबरदस्त रिकॉर्ड ब्रेकिंग बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन किया है। और उसके अलावा आनंददायक प्रभु और के टीम मेंबर्स ने बहुत अच्छा किया है मसूदर को। हाँ, और इसके अलावा जितने भी भक्त हैं कॉन्ग्रेगेशन में जुड़े हुए भक्त हैं, धन्यवाद करना चाहेंगे। अभी यहाँ पे नाम सबका सुना नहीं सकते क्योंकि बहुत बड़ी संख्या है, लगभग 3000 भक्त जुड़ते हैं बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में।
What's the total number of books, big books we did?
Yes, Maharaj. Mahabig books 3,31,864. Srimad Bhagavatam sets 986. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit 305. Chaitanya Charitamrita sets 1,786. Big books 4,656.
Actually, now we should, for all those who have taken Bhagavatam Sats and Chaitanya Charitamrita, that we should approach them and get them to read it.
Yes.
Part 2 of our marathon. मैं ये कह रहा था कि जिन्होंने भगवतम और चैतन्य चरितामृत जिनको भी दिया है उनसे फॉलोअप करना चाहिए कि वो पढ़े इनको।
Yes. Reading
Grand total.
टोटल दिखा दीजिए एक बार फिर से दिखो।
Grand total.
ओके ऊपर तो ये महाबीर बुक्स जो टोटल है वो है 3,31,864। श्रीमद् भागवतम सेट्स 986, डिवाइड किया प्रभुपाद लीलामृत 305, चैतन्य चरितामृत 1,786, बिग बुक्स 4,656, मीडियम बुक्स 6,646, small books 40,746। टोटल बिग बुक्स तो टोटल 4 लाख